Well, hello all, and welcome to this. And this is going to be kind of like a catch-up vid. That's why it's not a live stream, just because I wanted to get on here and do it. I've been out of town, dealing with family stuff, so all caught up now. Back. Have to work tomorrow, which won't be fun. But anyways, at least I'll be at work when most of you see this, I'm sure. But anyways, I thought I would just run down, get some stuff caught up that I had been hoping to do, which I had not gotten to do. So let's get started. So if you go back, me and Chase made a couple of vids. We were in Chicago for All Out Weekend. We caught Thunder. I'm even horrible calling it Thunder. I caught Rampage. Went to both days of the Fan Fest, which we weren't planning on going to. That was kind of a last minute thing. Yeah, and then of course went to All Out, and then came back and all that stuff. So there's a list of stuff that I actually wrote some stuff down so that I wouldn't forget. I am sure I will still forget stuff, but anyway. So FanFest. We kind of talked about this in the other video, but I thought I would kind of talk about it a little bit more. We did originally what we were going to do is Chase wanted to go Friday, whichever day the Jurassic Express were going to be there, which I guess that would have been Saturday. Was the original plan. He at the last minute, and then he had bought me just because he wanted to go, so he went ahead and got me a Sheeta meet and greet as well. It was very interesting. It was definitely very, like, I can't remember the last time I've been to an Access. This was not as good as an Access, I would say that, but I don't think it was not set up to be either. I think as time goes on, it will probably be better. I would say that my one big kind of complaint about the weekend were the merch tables, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because I think they had a lot of kind of cool stuff, but it would have been nice, especially since you are in Chicago, that is where Pro Wrestling Tees is from, that we would have gotten a whole lot more of merch stuff, and I think that was very evident on All Out. If you kind of follow, if you kind of followed me on Twitter, I talked about the fact that by the time you got to the women's match, which is where I ran down to try to get something from the merch tables at All Out, there was virtually nothing left. I will get to that, but at FanFest, the merch tables were not spectacular either, which I think hurt a little bit. The biggest things really they had signed figures. From some people who weren't there, some people who were, so that was kind of cool. They were expensive though. They had some shirts, and then basically stuff that you could kind of get signed, but nothing I would say spectacular. And I would say that was my one biggest complaint kind of about the weekend. That said, we did have a good time going. It all kind of runs together now, which days we saw which people, especially the people that you got to see with your paid admission. But I know Saturday we talked about, when we went Saturday, the big line that kind of surprised us. Well, there was two really. On Friday, the line that surprised us was Hobbs. He had a fairly spectacular line for being like the free, for being like a general admission ticket. So that was kind of surprising to us. There was a lot more people on Saturday. I would say, and everybody kind of said this, that they probably need to kind of organize it a little better. I would say probably it didn't need to be in a bigger venue. That was very evident. It was a big enough venue. They just needed to organize it a little bit better, I would say, and everybody kind of needs to be on the same page. The Q&A stuff that they had when we were there on Friday was pretty interesting. I talked about this before. Malachi Black's had a Q&A when we first got there. It was awesome. I almost got out of line so I could ask and just basically tell him that He, the way he was talking, everything was so Jake Roberts-like, and I mean that in an awesome way. It was very cool. I can't remember everything else they did there on the Q&As, because, like I said, everything kind of runs together. I do remember Saturday was the figure thing, but that was it. We had a good time. I know I've been asked, because I'm not a figure guy, but which AEW figure I would want, and that is, let me minimize this, that would be this guy. Yes, I finally got one. Not only did I get one, I got one signed. This to me is my get for the weekend. Other than, honestly, the Daniel Garcia autograph. Well, the Lucha Brothers autograph, but was as well, because I got their autograph as well. But the Daniel Garcia autograph was another get for me, because this was the first time I'd ever been anywhere where he was actually at. So that was kind of cool. So yeah, so that was fun and exciting stuff. What else happened? On the Friday Fan Fest, who did we see Friday? We saw the Lucha Bros, that was it, and then Hobbs. I'm sure we got somebody else, but I can't remember who else we probably got to sign our stuff. But yeah, I would say it was fun. They had kind of a museum of past things. So they had a picture of they had a painting of Brody Lee. They had the throne. They had the famous Cody throne that was there, which everyone kind of got a laugh at. They also had a case that had all of the former belts that they had used for the different belts, so that was kind of cool too. And just a lot of props, a lot of stuff. That was kind of cool. That which I'm sure they can expand on as years go by. But yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. I don't know how other people felt about it. It definitely could be bigger and better. But yeah, I did enjoy it. Then we went to Rampage. Rampage was pretty fun. That we went to. This is the first AEW show I've been to since before the pandemic, and it was a good time. It was hard. I won't lie, because there was a lot of dark, which we were expecting. The Lee Moriarty Joey Janela match was a match they kind of popped out, and out of those tapings came kind of an issue with Damianti and Big Swole. People were really upset. People felt like this should be on Dynamite, and I can tell you, because I actually watched it, because I was gonna see if they could save it after everyone made a big deal of it, that especially this coming Dynamite, it definitely should not have been on. Could you have put it on Rampage? Maybe, but it still wasn't that good. They saved it in the tapings, but it still wasn't that good, I would say. And I completely understand that there needs to be about representation and all of that stuff, and that people get really frustrated with AEW, because there's a whole list of people that could be pushed that aren't pushed. You see Brian Cage bitching about that right now, which I would say with Brian Cage, and I like Brian Cage. I like Brian Cage a lot. That is a dude that definitely, he could go, there's a lot of places he could go, and if he's not happy, just let him go, and let him go be happy. I think that also sends a really good message of, if you're not happy there, hey, and he's the first, and he was, and we were kind of wondering who was going to be the first to kind of complain about their push and all of that, and I shouldn't say he's complaining, because he has said he's not complaining. He just doesn't think he's probably being used to the best of his ability. But at the same time, you could easily say to him, hey, if you feel like you can go elsewhere, we'd be more than happy to let you go and go elsewhere too. So there you go. But there's a whole list of people, back on track, there's a whole list of people in AEW that everyone wants to use, and representation, of course, is a huge issue. And even as I'm white, I'm a guy, but I get it. But I always find it kind of like, when people bring up it in AEW, because it's like, okay, who isn't getting the push that should get the push? Because there's really, like, the only people you can really point to would be Proud and Powerful, and they're really it that I can think of. Everybody else is like, because you don't want to give people a push who don't deserve a push just because, well, it would be nice to give people a push, because it comes off the wrong way. It always does. It always, 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 always does. And it's one of those things that often kind of like, I'm always kind of like, and my response always is, well, who do you think should be getting those spots that you don't feel should be getting the spots that you don't think they are getting the opportunity to get those spots? That's always my question. And people always point to WWE and say, well, look how well WWE is. And I'm always like, really? Because there's a lot of people getting spots, but do the spots really mean anything? And I think that you want meaningful spots, not just people getting spots. But that's probably a whole argument for a different time. But the same people who really got on about the Swole match not being on like Dynamite or Rampage are the same people who when the Black Wrestler 500 came out, which I think is an important thing. I think it was. I wish, my one issue with it is that they made a list, and then they made a list and said, well, the rankings really don't mean anything. And I think anytime you make a list like that, the rankings do need to be something, especially, we just had the PWI 500, right? Everyone gets all upset, even though everybody kind of knows the deal. But I do think it's important, because I think a list like that is a list of, okay, here are the top 500 black wrestlers. Let's see who's on top of this list and who are not getting the spots, who should be getting spots. That's that, as well as highlighting, hey, here are the people who, if you want to support black wrestlers, these are the people you can support. I think it also has to be that way, because when you look at Trish Adora being number one, and I completely understand why they put her on number one, at the same time, somebody that wouldn't understand that is going to look at that and say, first of all, who is this, and how could you put her first above Bianca Belair and I can't think, and what's her name, who she wrestled in WWE at WrestleMania? How can you put her above both of them, giving what they did at WrestleMania, and so on and so forth? I think that's an issue with the list, even though they themselves said, hey, if you look at the list, don't take the listing too seriously. Just take it as, hey, here are 500 people that you can follow and support. I don't kind of agree with that. I think that the list needs to be, because I do think it's an important thing. I think that's a good thing of like, hey, let's see, and let's kind of look at that list. But yeah, but that was a match that I definitely didn't feel like, and especially somebody there live, and the fact that basically being there live, there was a lot of confusion within the crowd about what the match actually was supposed to be, all of that. They kind of fixed that on television, and they edited out some of the stuff, and it came off, I think, better on TV than it did live, but it still wasn't. It wasn't a match in which you want to highlight people. That would be the way I would put it. And I always find it funny when people get all upset about AEW, and then one of the most pushed women in AEW, well, two of the most pushed women of it, is Jade, of course, and then Nyla Rose, which is like, what other organization would really push Nyla Rose that heavy, really? And I completely get why they push her that way, because she is their monster, and it's, but it is what it is. But yeah, then what did we do? Then we went to woke up, ate a little bit, went to, my phone's going crazy, so excuse me while I because I'm not gonna pause anything. We went to the Saturday Fan Fest, met more people, met Sheeta, who was extremely nice, extremely cool. We met we also saw the Acclaimed line. They were one of the, you paid your admission, you get to see them for free. Their line was as long as anybody's there, which was crazy to see. We also got to see Top Flights was actually really long too. And then we sat in line, and we talked about this, to meet Daniel Garcia, because that was a guy that I really wanted to see, and that was really cool. If you didn't see the video, me and Chase talked about the fact that Chase brought up the fact of him maybe facing Daniel Bryan, and he was like, this was before Daniel Bryan, of course, debuted, and he was like, looks like maybe someday, if everything works out. And then I asked him about Suzuki, and he was mean mugging most people, and his face lit up and was like, man, I'm not gonna believe that match is taking place until I'm actually in the ring. It's one of those type of deals. You could tell it was a big deal for him. So so that was cool. The other thing that kind of like surprised me, and I'm sure most of you have seen the video, was the figure announcements, which of course is a big deal to a lot of people, and was pretty cool actually. There was actually some figures, especially a lot of the limited figures and special edition figures, that I actually was kind of like, oh, those are kind of cool, even though I'm definitely not a figure guy. So there was that, and that was cool. What else was there that was kind of cool? Kip Saban was there. He was doing a gimmick where he was like, had a box on his head, and that was definitely a little different for sure. So that was kind of cool. Had a box on his head, wasn't actually being himself. We didn't even realize he was there until like we somebody pointed him out, and we were like, what? And they were like, he was over there. So that was cool. So yeah, so that was very, very interesting. And of course we went to we went to somewhere. Like I said, we did go to Rampage, which interesting to say the least, especially, like I said, with all the dark stuff. So that was, and then of course we went to All Out. Well, actually, we didn't go to the Wargames show. I actually have my notes for the Wargames show right here, so I'm going to read them off. And we watched it at the hotel. We streamed it, and Chase had not seen any GCW matches outside of like the spring breaks and the blood sports, right? And I warned him. I was like, okay, so here's the thing with GCW. Either it's going to be a really good show or it's not going to be good. And of course then Dave Meltzer, I think this was the first like true GCW show Dave Meltzer has ever been to. And all sorts of stuff. And I was kind of looking excited to it because I really think the Cordona stuff that had been going on, I think he has been like gold. So I was really curious like how they were going to do the whole like mystery opponent thing. So we had Billy Starkz versus Janai. I'm going to be really honest. I thought this match was horrible. And was like not good whatsoever. Was not fun. And that was like the first match out of the gate, and Chase, who had not seen like women's indie wrestling in probably 3 years really, was just like, what is this? And I said, this is the state of women's indie wrestling. And he was like, that's no good. And I was like, yep, pretty much. Then we got Allie Katch versus Tony Deppen. Of course, Chase knew who Tony Deppen was, and we watched this, and he was like, wow, that's like one of the worst Tony Deppen matches he'd ever seen. I wouldn't go that far myself, but it was okay at best, I thought. Just not my cup of tea. I'm not, like, Allie Katch is just not my cup of tea at all. And I'm not really into, like, I'm usually not into intergender matches, and this wasn't a bad intergender match, but it just wasn't what, like, I had hoped it was. Then we had the ladder scramble. This was absolutely nuts. I would say it's a must-see, even though it is complete, like, it's like crazy shit, but it's like a bunch of crazy shit. The last spot was absolutely insane. So yeah, so with Ninja Mac, which I'm absolutely it's just like insane. Shane Mercer, though, I thought was kind of the star of the show, because when he was in there throwing dudes around, and when he was like kind of controlling the match, I felt the match was like less chaotic in a good way. The match was way too chaotic, especially with the two rings. And just lots of just like stuff, and I don't mean like just like spotty stuff going on. That was just like, oh yay. Still, it was a spectacular match. The ending was spectacular, well worth seeing. The Wargames match, which is why I wanted to watch the show, was interesting, to say the least. This was meant to kind of be like the end of a feud, and they booked it in a way that was interesting, but was also kind of disappointing. In that they booked it the backwards, which you never want to see, where the heels had, or the faces had the advantage all the way through. And the reason why the faces had the advantages all the way through was so that the heels kept getting like their comeuppance, right? They kept getting just beating the tar out of. It was I wouldn't call it a squash, but it was definitely just a match where the heels just kept getting beaten up, which was kind of satisfying if you followed the feud, but at the same time, it's not what you expect out of a Wargames match. The last little part of it was crazy and good. The end of the match was like a lot of fun. Then you had Frank the Clown was the first special kind of like Cordona opponent, and everyone was like, ah. And then of course you had the Druids come out, you had the people come out, and one of them wound up being Moxley, and Moxley beat him, which was kind of cool. So at some point we will get Moxley versus Gage, which they've been building up for a while. So that was pretty fun. That part of it, I would say the last three matches, and we'll say the last three segments were good. But the start of this was not good. Like the first half of the show was just not a lot of fun, which sucks, because I think if you look at like some of their LA stuff and the stuff that they have coming up, much better shows. And they had a really large crowd. I'm sure it's a crowd that doesn't normally watch GCW. It's probably a lot of people that like Spring Break and that sort of, and it's like the special shows, and they didn't put on the best show. So there was that. Then we had All Out itself, which we reviewed. Absolutely awesome. I got to watch it with my wife, and she was like, wow, that was like really good. Like Miro and Kingston, who she's not like the biggest Kingston fan, but she was like, wow, that's a really good match. I was like, yeah. And then just being able to see everything, how it came off live, was a lot of fun. And it's like exciting. It's exciting to see like coming out of that show and seeing like how exciting like pro wrestling is now was really cool and a lot of fun. And just like how energized so many people are. And then we find out that the buy rates look to be well over 200,000, it looks like. Will it be, and I've looked, and maybe somebody in the comments can kind of help me with this, but I looked, and I found like differing numbers of what ECW One Night Stand, the first One Night Stand, did, which is really, if this pay-per-view can match or beat that number, which I saw anything between like 225 to 350 was that number, and I had thought it was like 250. That's where I thought I kind of remembered it being. I definitely remember it being like the number. I think it was the number 5 pay-per-view that year. I think, if I remember right, I think either Hell in the Cell or Money in the Bank were the two, or no, I guess there wouldn't have been Money in the Bank, so it had to be like Hell in the Cell, right? Something like that. It was either like the number, I seem to remember it being the number 5 pay-per-view that year. I could be wrong though, but I remembered it for like a non-big, like, it was a big deal. And if All Out can match that, given that everyone says pay-per-view for pro wrestling is dead, that's the common, that would be a big deal. So that would be cool. And then like this past Rampage, we also got Andrade versus Pac. Andrade finally had the match that we all kind of hoped. I think that match would have been like really, really, like, for TV, probably one of the best TV matches of the year, if it had not been for the way it ended. It ended in a screw away and came off. I kind of get where they're going with it, but it was still kind of like ending, right? So there was that too. But I think that's it. I think that's pretty much everything I kind of wanted to catch up on. Yeah. I would definitely say it is absolutely fascinating just how, like, hot AEW seems to be. And apparently on Friday, the SmackDown, which was in MSG, was really good, and one of the best WWE shows in a long, long time, which is good to hear. I do not watch them, but you want them to be good. You want, especially the promotion that when people think pro wrestling, they automatically think WWE, most people. You want them to be good. So there is that, especially given the fact that, like, the G1 cards came out, and with COVID and everything, New Japan is just like, I don't want to say it's dead, it's just like, I follow it, but I don't watch enough of it because it's so hard, especially now that we, like, have fans. Now the strong stuff is really good, and I expect the strong shows to be really good, and I expect, like, that any like fan stuff that people are going to be excited about is going to come from strong, because the fans are at strong, and not, running dome shows with 2,000 people and it just being like, oh my god, why? I mean, we all understand why, but still, it's no fun. But yeah, I think that's probably it, right? Yeah. So anyways, I think that's all. I've gone on for like 30 minutes, so that's probably more than enough. Have a good one. Hopefully this next Friday, because I will be home. I was not home yesterday, which is why I did not do a live stream. I will probably do another live stream this coming Friday after Rampage, and kind of get caught up on everything from this week. So yeah, including Death Before Dishonor. If I don't get to watch Death Before Dishonor tomorrow, I should be able to watch it sometime, because I am going to watch that show by the time we get to next weekend. So anyways, with that, I am out. You guys have a good one. Have a good rest of the week, and later.